Welcome back to the next episode of Coast to Coast. This is week 9. I'm your moderator for today, Jose, here with Liam. Say what's up.
What's
And
up,
Joel.
y'all?
What up?
Yeah, coming at you live from Miami, Long Beach, and Oregon. So let's get straight into today's game, the Thursday night football matchup, Packers-Niners NFC rematch. What you got to say about this one, Niner fans?
Like we said, I think Carson and I both know this, the NFC Championship game. We were at full swing. Mostert rushing for 200 yards that game, 4 touchdowns, one of the greatest performances we've ever seen from a running back in the playoffs. So, unfortunate to see that, but, you got to understand this Packers team with Devontae Adams is simply crazy. But shout out to my boy Richie James Jr. He ended to finish up as wide receiver 1 this week with 9 receptions for 184 and a touchdown, bringing his total to 33.4 points. But Aaron Jones, not the greatest game on the ground. It wasn't being used that much, but Marcus Valdez-Scantling out there with Devontae Adams put up some good numbers for that Green Bay Packers team.
Richie James coming out with a bang, coming out of nowhere, finished like a tenth of a point ahead of Devontae Adams. We'll get to them when we do the team of the week. McKinnon had a solid day, but it kind of got salvaged by a garbage time touchdown. So I think without that, he would have had a dud. Aaron Jones is pretty quiet because, it's really just like the Devontae Adams show. They didn't really even need him that much. Quiet 12 points is kind of, seen better from him. And, it was just tough seeing the Packers beat up on us like this because, we've been doing it to them, the past, few matchups, like you said, especially last season in the playoffs. But, yeah, huge game for Adams. I think him and Cook are really kind of, solidifying themselves as, the best fantasy players at their positions, respectively.
Yeah. One thing I would say is make sure you do not drop Jamal Williams. Way too late in the season to be dropping handcuffs. If Aaron Jones goes back down at any point, Jamal Williams becomes an RB1. So make sure you hold on to him. And go check out the breakdown on Devontae Adams up on the channel. But moving on to the next game, the Bills defeat the Seahawks 44-34. Russell Wilson with 4 turnovers, not my MVP. And Josh Allen with 4 total touchdowns. What do you got to say about this one, Liam?
So like you said, the top of my thing, I think Russell Wilson's losing this ground, the MVP race. It sucks to see because, he's a guy who hasn't received a single vote. He'll get a vote this year. I think there's really no way possible. But 4 turnovers is bad against, it's a good Bills defense. But, the Seahawks, allowed 44 points to the Bills. This secondary is horrendous. They allowed the most points to fancy wide receivers. Look at the wide receivers for the Bills. You got John Brown, 8 receptions, 99 yards, 17.9 points. Stephon Diggs, 9 receptions, 118 yards, 20.8 points. And, Josh Allen with a bounce-back performance. And I know last episode in our midseason recap, we were kind of dogging on him, saying that he's fallen off. And I know especially I was hard on him because his last 4 games did bad. But a 36-point outing was only good enough to, I think, finish his QB2 this week, which is pretty crazy. But Zach Moss is gaining some values. He was able to punch it into the end zone this game.
Yeah, I think at this point, Singletary is pretty much droppable. Unless you're in a super deep league, Singletary is not getting any goal work. I think Zach Moss is the pickup. But moving on to this next game, the Ravens defeat the Colts 24-10 with the weird and inefficient offense. What do you got to say about this one, Carson?
Yeah, this was just a terrible fantasy game. I think we're gonna get to the Titans-Bears game as well. Just 2 just disappointing games fantasy wise. Only 2 players in this game had over 10 points. Lamar had 18.6, and then Zach Pascal from the Colts, he led their team with 10.5. So just a bunch of duds all around. And Lamar probably wouldn't have even got that if it wasn't for that 1 rushing touchdown. And it's just getting really hard to start anyone on the Ravens anymore. Hollywood Brown, their running backs, you can't trust any of them. And even a guy like Mark Andrews, who at the tight end position where there's not really many viable options, even he's been really struggling, which is rare for him. And it's just sad to see because it's a complete 180 from last year. You can't really feel good starting anyone. As for the Colts, they're just I think both teams are very similar. Their defense is really great and they're going to be really good in the playoffs with their defenses, but their offenses are just really inept. And Jonathan Taylor, he went from being a potential league winner almost when Marlon Mack went down, and now it's it's even getting hard to start him. You don't know what he's going to do on a weekly basis. But the only bright spot I can say is despite their struggles, they do have, light schedules coming up for both teams. But, it's just really hard to start really anyone on both teams, unless you kind of have to.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add on to this one?
Nothing really. Like I just said, like Mark Andrews with a bad performance, 5.2 points, and then the Colts backfield simply a mess. I mean, going into the fantasy next year, who knows? Are you going to take Marlon Mack? Are you going to take Jonathan Taylor? It's all surprise.
Yeah.
Pittman with a good game coming back, 4 for 56, decent in PPR.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can establish himself as its number one receiver.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Texans and Jaguars, they defeat the Jags 27-25. With the Jaguars starting a rookie QB, Luton. What do you have to say about this one, Carson?
Yeah, so for the Jags, I mean, yeah, it was fun to see, Luton, like his first start, kind of have a pretty decent game. He had like 20 points. Not really much else with them this game. DJ Chark, besides Chark and Robinson, Chark went off. He had 27.6 points and, making a connection with Luton. And then James Robinson just continues to be like awesome. He had 15.9 points today, double-digit points in every game this season, which is like really, really rare for someone, especially, at like the flex positions. And then as for Houston, Will Fuller just like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Will Fuller's been like one of the most consistent wide receivers this season. That's like anything but what he's been the last couple of years. He's on a 6-game touchdown streak. He finished with 21 points Sunday. And then I was kind of wrong about Brandon Cooks. Ever since that 30-point outing in week 5, he's been playing really well. And then Duke Johnson is someone that is like probably going to be the most important waiver wire pickup this week because he finished with 15.3 points. Really good volume, 16 rushes for 41 yards and a touchdown, and then 4 catches. Definitely he's got to be your priority on the waiver wire if you're needing a running back.
Yeah, for sure. I think Will Fuller, he's managed to stay healthy, and he's shown that he can be a number one receiver in this offense. I think he's pretty much must start going forward. He's obviously not Hopkins, but he's playing well this season. And do you have anything else to add, Liam?
No, not really. I mean, it's like in my notes, Deshaun Watson win a close game over the Jaguars, shouldn't have been that. But Jake Luton, surprisingly good. I know he had that little spin move there to get his rushing touchdown there at the end.
That was sick.
It was sad. I wanted the game to go in OT, just from a fan perspective to watch that. But, I mean, who knows? He might have a future out here for the next few weeks, but expect him to go quarterback at the draft this year.
Yeah.
And the next game, the Titans defeating the Bears 24-17. The Bears have really fallen off since their little undefeated streak. But Nick Foles with almost 350 yards through the air and 2 touchdowns. And A.J. Brown with 4 for 100 and a touchdown. What do you guys have to say about this one?
I just wanted to start off. I think A.J. Brown is literally a crazy good wide receiver. I mean, if you saw the touchdown catch he had, he was able to reel that in with coverage on his back and still bring it into the end zone. I mean, top of my notes, a certified stud, 4 receptions, 101 yards and a touchdown. But Ryan Tannehill, I mean, he was kind of gaining some traction potentially in the MVP race, I mean, maybe lost it off of the Pittsburgh game, but, 10 for 21 with 158 yards and 2 TDs is not going to cut it. And then Derrick Henry, the thing is with PPR, he's a touchdown dependent back, 68 yards is going to get him 6.8 points. He doesn't catch the ball. And then, Nick Foles threw the ball 52 times, which is a lot to handle. And Jimmy Graham, with a solid game, 17.5, and Allen Robinson doing what he does out there, 7 receptions for 81 yards.
This looks like a bat, bro.
I mean, people forget that A.J. Brown was actually taken ahead of Metcalf in the draft, seen as the better, more polished receiver coming out of that draft class. But, Metcalf has obviously gone on to become this insane receiver. But A.J. Brown, he's not bad at all. Definitely in the wide receiver 1 territory.
Yeah, those top 3 guys out of that draft, McLaurin, Brown, and Metcalf, they're going to be fighting for who's the best wide receiver from that class for the next few years. It's going to be awesome to see, especially if McLaurin ends up getting a good, talented quarterback, and we see the work Metcalf's doing with Wilson, and hopefully Tannehill keeps what he's doing with Brown, and if Brown can stay healthy because he's been the one that hasn't had the most health. So we'll see.
Yeah. Moving on to a nail-biter, the Chiefs 33, Panthers 31. CMC comes back. Obviously, Kelsey eats like he always does, but What do you guys have to say about this game?
Carson, you back? Yeah.
So let's start with Carolina. It was dope to see CMC came back. He came back like with a vengeance. Hopefully, you held on to him if you drafted him. He was awesome. 37.1 points, 10 receptions, led all running backs this week, and Teddy Bridgewater balled out too. Kind of playing out of his comfort zone a little bit. He's normally just like a safe floor guy, but he ended up with 28 points. He's currently at QB 12, only one spot behind Lamar. And then Curtis Samuel just keeps being awesome since week 7. This is the 3rd week in a row with over 17, and then back-to-back games with over 20. He finished with 26.8 points. Robbie Anderson keeps doing his thing. And as for the Chiefs, just the three-headed monster just came out to play today. Tyreek Hill went crazy, 33.1 points on 18 targets, which is just insane. That's got to be the lead for this week. Kelsey was awesome too, 25.9 points, and then another 30 bomb for Mahomes. All three of those guys, just showing why they're defending champs. They're, if you stack them in fantasy, you would have had an awesome week this week. They were the number 1 QB, wide receiver, and tight end so far. Even though Kyler, he had a bye week, but it's just crazy to see that one team has a number 1 in all those positions. It's crazy. And the only negative for the Chiefs, obviously their passing game is amazing, but just their run game, Clyde only had 5 carries, and then Bell only had 4, and then only 6 passing targets. So it's kind of looking bad starting those guys, but you're so happy if you have any of those pass catchers that I mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. I know Allaire was bailed out by a touchdown pass, but otherwise not a good game from either of those guys. I don't really see much stock in Le'Veon. If someone's willing to take a risk on him, try and sell him in your league.
Yeah, but we saw CMC suffer a shoulder injury, so do not drop Mike Davis. It's still too early to hold. You should hold on to guys like that. He's one of the biggest handcuffs in the league.
Exactly.
Moving on to the NFC Least Bowl. Giants 23, Washington football team 20. Someone had to get a win, but Giants walk away with it this time. Giants defense is actually pretty well run. They've got some talented guys on the defensive end. Their offense is complete garbage, but their defense is well run. I think that's really what won them this game.
Mm-hmm.
Jabril Peppers went off.
Yeah, he did have a good game. It's good to see that. But no, looking at the fantasy side of things, we were talking about those top 3 receivers, Jose and I were. McLaurin was actually the best one from that draft class this Sunday with 7 receptions, 115 yards, and a touchdown, giving him 24.5 points. And it's kind of interesting in this backfield right now. Obviously we know J.D. McKissic isn't much of a rusher, but he's a PPR guy. He's got 17.2 points. It's kind of hard. He's kind of a risky play from what I've seen. And it seems like Wayne Gallman's taken over the backfield over Devontae Freeman. But, no long-time value when, come next year we see Saquon Barkley take the backfield back.
Yeah. Gallman, I think he's a pretty low-end RB2. He's getting a lot of goal line carries and touchdown work. If he gets that touchdown, he'll put up 12 points. If he doesn't, he put up 6 points. But McKissic, I think with Alex Smith at QB, we saw Kyle Allen go down, but with Alex Smith QB, I think McKissic is a pretty safe bet to get that 10-point mark in PPR leagues because Alex Smith is just a check down machine. He's like Drew Brees light.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Moving on to the Vikings and Lions. The Vikings, a.k.a. Dalvin Cook, defeats the Lions 34-20 with 206 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. Carson, what do you have to say about this one?
Yeah, you said it, bro. It's the Dalvin Cook show. That's a bad man. It's their whole offense. And, if they're going to win, they're going to win with him as their go-to guy. It's tough, if you have Thielen and Jefferson, just watching them run their whole offense through Cook. But I think, with the success of Cook, it's just going to only open them up more, even though they kind of had duds this week. But as for Detroit, Hawkinson keeps balling. He's very underrated and underappreciated. And just frustrating to see their backfield being shared because I think Swift is really, really talented and he can be the bell cow. But, it just, that's not going to happen under Matt Patricia. and nothing too crazy from them. But Irv Smith had a pretty nice game. I'm not sure where Rudolph is, but 2 catches, 10 yards, 2 touchdowns with the 15 points. You can't really trust that because that's a really, really lucky stat line. But just Cook dominating, showing why he's I think overtaking Kamara as the number 1 back and number 1 player in fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this the other day. Peterson was the last running back to win MVP, and Dalvin Cook has topped every single one of his stats so far. So, but sadly, they are 3-5, so it's not looking good for his MVP candidacy.
Offensive player of the year for sure, though.
For sure, yeah. Him or Kamara.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. We'll see how these weeks play out, especially now with Michael Thomas back. Slant God's going to get his catches, so it's going to take away from Kamara. So we'll see. I mean, I know Kamara is on pace for 1,000 yards, but we'll see how that turns
out. I think he hit 1,000 yards on
receiving?
Sunday Night Football. Just from scrimmage.
Oh, yeah, I'm talking about receiving, though. Yeah, for sure.
Falcons 34, Broncos 27. Drew Lock with another monster game, 300 yards through the air and 2 touchdowns. What do you guys have to say about this one?
Jerry Jeudy, finally with his first good game as a pro, 7 receptions, 125 yards, and a touchdown, going 25.5 points, finishing as one of the top-end wide receivers this week. Looking at the running back situation for the Broncos, though, it seems like Melvin Gordon's kind of fallen off. I mean, at the beginning of the year, he's thinking that he's going to be a pretty good, like a low-end RB2 flex, especially with the production he was getting. But now that backfield's just kind of interesting. And then KJ Hamler seems to be a good weapon, a good deep threat out there. He brought in 15 points. And then kind of an interesting week to see from the Falcons, though. I mean, you got Gurley, Zacchaeus, I believe, replacing for Ridley, and Jones all playing well, spreading the wealth around there. Matt Ryan's going to get his yards and his points. But, I mean, they were able to win this one. But, I mean, it's a Broncos team that, isn't what we thought it was going to be coming into the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think jumping off the point about Melvin Gordon, I think with him, they just fell behind early and, they couldn't really use him that much just because of the game script. I think, I don't think you can really drop him yet, but that is definitely something to monitor. And Hayden Hurst, I really liked him coming into this season, filling in for Hooper. He hasn't boomed or really done anything crazy in any weeks, but he's just been really, really good and really solid at a position that besides the top 3, 4 guys, you're not really sure what you're going to get. And so he's in the top 5, 10 plus points for him each week, the last 4 weeks. And the big guy for Atlanta, oh gosh, I'm going to butcher this, but you guys know what I'm about to say. Olamide Zacchaeus. He's not listening, so that's cool. Coming off 3 weeks of straight goose eggs, no points, but he dropped 20 points. And I was surprised the Falcons didn't actually blow this game because it looked like they were. But that just shows, how bad it's been for the Broncos this year. They couldn't even make that comeback.
Yeah. The AFC West rivalry game, the Raiders defeat the Chargers 31-26. Raiders improving to 5-3, second place in their division, hoping for a playoff push late. But Herbert with a great game, 326 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just couldn't pull it out in the end. What do you guys have to say about this game?
Yeah, I'll start it off. Herbert just keeps balling. 23.4 points for him. It probably would have been at least 27 if one of those last-second plays would have gone down. But just sucks to see for the Chargers, for the Chargers fans, wherever they are, must hurt so bad just watching, just every week it seems like something bad happens at the end and they lose. Kalen Ballage, one of the coolest last names in football, kind of coming out of nowhere, taking over lead running back duties while Eckler's out. 15 carries to Kelly's 9. He had a good game. And then Mike Williams, solid 13.1 points. I think he could have had a really monster game. He had 2 touchdown drops. And then as for the Raiders, pretty slow for them. They got the win, but really slow fantasy-wise because no one scored over 14 points. Carr led them with exactly 14. And Josh Jacobs finally getting in the end zone, but, didn't get the volume that he usually does or the yardage to really have a monster game. But it's nice to see him, finally have a, solid game because he has had some pretty massive duds this season.
And did
Yeah,
you say end zone and the Raiders did not mention Nelson Aguilar? This man's got 5 touchdowns this year, a resurgence
Comeback for him.
I know. I mean, he was a talented wide receiver. I know the year he broke out, I believe I had him in fantasy, and he's been doing well this year. I mean, obviously not the number one target, but then again, the number one target's Waller, and then it's kind of shaky from there. Like, lost Tyrell Williams.
Exactly.
Was it going to be Hunter Renfrow? Was it going to be Ruggs? But it seems like he's actually been the number one wide receiver for them, but not obviously the number one targets guy.
Yeah, I think he's taken over. Like, if Tyrell Williams was healthy, I think that was going to be, like, his role. But, yeah, it's nice to see Aguilar, like, kind of having that comeback.
Yeah, I would try to buy low on Jacobs. He's got a pretty good schedule coming up, and I think he can only go up from here. I mean, he's had a couple mid weeks. The owner's probably pretty frustrated with him. You can probably get him for cheap. But Balaj, we've seen these players leave the Jets offense and become stars. You've seen Robbie Anderson,
Ryan Tannehill. Actually, Adam Gase.
Adam Gase, yeah. And Balaj is now 69 yards and a touchdown. Might be their lead back coming this week if Josh Jackson's out. But look for him on the waiver wire. The Steelers improved to 8-0, barely defeating the Cowboys 24-19. Cowboys almost shocked the league with the rookie QB in Garrett Gilbert. I think he's the truth. I think he's going to lead us to the promised land. But Steelers,
This guy
low-key played like shit until the end. And at one point, it was pretty much just the refs versus the Cowboys. Steelers offense struggled in the whole game. Cowboys defense played okay. It just makes me wonder where we would be if we still had Dak Prescott.
That is true. But I mean, I think the defense is your concern there. But like you were saying with the Steelers,
everything is the concern.
The offensive line, Zeke's not playing well, all that stuff. But looking at a fantasy aspect, I actually was looking at the numbers. The Steelers, I mean, there was about 5 pass catchers that, wouldn't have been terrible to start. I mean, Juju got top of them all. 6 receptions, 93 yards, and a touchdown, got him 21.3. Claypool, 8 receptions for 69, 15.3. Deontay Johnson, who we know is a big boom guy there, 6 receptions for 77 yards, 14.1 points. And then Ebron and James Washington both hauled in touchdowns. Ebron on that big hurdle that we saw. And then Amari and Lamb were the only guys with real production out there with 12.5 for Amari and 15.1 for Lamb.
Yeah, it was great to see all the 3 main receivers for the Steelers, Claypool, Juju, and Deontay, all have double digits this week. The only other time this has happened was week 2. And, yeah, it was just great to see Big Ben. Even though he got injured, he was still able to manage and spread the ball around. He had a really good day for him, actually, 25 points. That's his best game all season. The passing game was great. But as for running the ball, James Conner with a dud with 4 points. The first time he's been in single digits since the week 1 Monday Night Football game. So Big Ben, their offense looked really good. And, it just it's tough to see the Cowboys just like so depleted because they were, it seemed like they were going to be, like a Chiefs, a Seahawks type offense in fantasy, but it just went away so quick, praying for Dak. And just tough in the backfield because not only is Zeke, running behind like a terrible O-line, but he's, they're just using Pollard more, and it just is looking worse and worse for Zeke. But, yeah, great to see all 3 of those Steelers receivers have nice days for sure.
Yeah. The reigning MVP frontrunner Kyler Murray takes a tough loss to the Dolphins with Tua now 2-0 as a starter. Hopkins with a bad game. Kirk with 5 for 123 and a touchdown. But Kyler Murray was the story of this game with almost 400 yards from scrimmage and 4 total touchdowns. What do you have to say about this one, Liam?
Yeah, so, I mean, like you're talking about, Kyler for an impressive performance in a loss. It seems like what it looks like to me here, the Dolphins are just rallying around Tua. They're making him look good right now. Some stellar defense out there. I believe Xavier Howard was the one causing some disruption for Hopkins out there. So, yeah, like you said, a good game from Kirk. But Preston Williams and Devontae Parker were the only ones with serviceable performance on this Dolphins team. I mean, the running team, do not trust Matt Breida or anything like that until you see Myles Gaskin get back. But Preston Williams, 4 receptions, 60 yards, and a touchdown. And Devontae with 6 receptions for 64 yards. Unfortunately, Devontae Adams is not the guy. I mean, Devontae Parker is not the player that we thought he'd be, after last year, smoking Stephon Gilmore. But we'll see, though. I mean, Tua's just beginning to get into this offense. He had no training camps, no OTAs, so it's interesting scene.
Yeah, Kyler, he's just so fun to watch, man. And that's like one of my QBs I got. He's just so fun. I mean, massive day on the ground, 106 yards. That's the second most this week, only behind Dalvin, who just obliterated everyone else. Kyler, a really efficient day as well, 21 for 26 and no picks, which is great. Despite his success, it was tough to see Hopkins, only 3 targets. He had only 6 points. And Chase Edmonds, too, who, was like their pass catching back, but, only had 3 catches and had a ton of carries, 25 carries, but, wasn't really able to do much with it, only 11 points. And just we're seeing, like, the future of the NFL with these 2 guys, Tua and Kyler. Is just great to see. I'm excited for them and, the years to come. Tua, with his breakout game, 21 points. And he looked really good, like, running the football, actually. Every time that he scrambled or like a designed run, he looked really fast, really elusive too. And I think just like a game like this, he's just kind of laying the blueprint for, a guy that's going to be really popular, I think, in drafts next year. That might be dubbed like, the next Lamar, the next Kyler. I think he's going to be like that lead candidate for sure. Already looking ahead to next year. The draft's the best part.
I mean, and also look into it. We got the Dolphins going against the Chargers next week. It's going to be an interesting thing to see.
Ooh, yep.
A great rookie quarterback in Herbert and so on too.
Yeah.
That, there's still some speculation about him, but it's going to be interesting to see, Herbert's going to go against a very good defense in the Dolphins, and hopefully Tua might be able to tear up this Chargers team. They haven't been that great on defense, so we'll see what happens.
I'm rooting for Tua, man. I really like him. Like, as a person, he seems really nice, and he's, like, super accurate. I'm rooting for him. He seems dope.
A huge NFC South matchup on Sunday Night Football. The Buccaneers get smacked around by the Saints, 38-3. Breeze tosses 4 touchdowns. The Bucs really just struggled all around to get anything going in this game. I think the Saints, they've really established themselves as the leaders of this division. I think there's no way the Bucs end up winning this now. What do you have to say about this one, Carson?
Breeze looked really good. Like you said, 4 touchdowns. Kamara with his worst game this season with 15.9 points, which is bad for Kamara, but that's really solid day for literally everyone else in fantasy. Just, testament to how good he is. And then Michael Thomas, managers were super excited to get him back. And we're probably pretty pissed after watching him only drop 10 points. But I expect bigger weeks from him just because, they're going to get Atlanta twice in the next 4 weeks. And, you expect him to just cook them. As for Tampa Bay, man, it just seems like, just when you think like they're kind of like inching towards being like a top favorite in the NFC, they just get ran. And Brady went back, we thought, he's looking good again. And then he just, comes out, puts up a dud. He looks washed again. Mike Evans was their highest scorer with 10 points. And Brady just, a terrible game, 3 picks. He had 2 fantasy points. And, the NFC is just all over the place, man. The Seahawks, they got wrecked. The Bucs look terrible. Then the Saints sometimes, they don't – who knows, man. The NFC is all up in the air.
You have anything to add on, Liam?
Nothing really. I mean, like Carson's saying, the NFC is a mess right now. We don't know who's going to come out of it. Every team has a significant issue. I mean, I was talking with some friends of mine today. I mean, look at the Packers. They have the worst rush defense in the league. I mean, the Bucs seem to have their issues as much as they seem like they're a good, well-rounded team. I mean, the Seahawks, they can't even defend the pass. So who knows what's going to happen? And the Saints always fall through one way or another. So we'll see.
And there's not going to be any home field advantage. So that leaves it even more up in the air because, at least with, a team like Seattle or Green Bay, you'd get that, massive home field advantage, but we're not going to have that this season. So it's all even right now.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I know it's too early to start talking about this, but if the Seahawks were the ones to make it out and the Chiefs were the ones to make it out,
ooh,
air raid
all day.
Air raid.
But
that would be fun. I'm rooting for that actually. Actually, not screw the Seahawks, but that would be fun.
Monday Night Football matchup. The Patriots scrape out a win against the Jets, 30-27. Flacco with 3 touchdowns, looking like his elite self again. Noonan with two rushing touchdowns, and Jacoby Myers with 12 receptions for 169 yards. What do you guys have to say about this game?
Yeah, so I always like to tease the delusional Patriots fan on my floor about it all the time. I mean, how are they down to the Jets? That's just super sad. I mean, they finally scored their first quarter touchdown of the year, surprising, and you would have never guessed it was a Cam Newton rushing touchdown. I mean, it's interesting to see that he literally can't, score touchdowns in the air. I mean, that's not a bad problem, but, I mean, when he only
it is a bad problem when you're the quarterback.
I mean, it's a problem. I mean, if you were a great rushing team, but they're not that. He has 2 passing touchdowns this year, which is, I mean, he also doesn't have the weapons, you got to give him respect there. But, Jacoby Myers, again, great PPR game, even with 28.9 points, he wasn't able to finish as a top wide receiver on our fantasy team of the week. But, Cam Newton, he was efficient out through the air. You got to give him credit for that. But then again, you got to see the defense he was playing. It's the Jets, for Pete's sake. But no, Flacco had a good game. And Brashad Perryman, he was kind of seen as an under-the-radar guy that was going to fill in for Robbie Anderson. And actually, a lot of people were hyped up on him, but he actually had a good game. 5 receptions for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that was good to see from Brashad.
Yeah, I mean, I took the Patriots at -9.5. I'm thinking, they've been terrible this year, but I mean, it's still the Jets, bro. You got Bill Belichick still. He always beats up on the Jets, and they couldn't even cover for me. It's ridiculous. But yeah, you mentioned Jacoby Myers. Brashad Perriman had a really nice day as well. He had 27 points. Nice to see Crowder back, even though he only had 10 points.
Nice touchdown.
Not really much else. Yeah, not really much else to say about the Jets. And as for their Damian Harris is another guy like DeAndre Swift. I just want to see them just use him as the bell cow, because he just shows so many nice flashes where he could be their guy. But when you have Belichick, and you still have Rex Burkhead, who had a really nice day, 15.7 points. I just really think Harris has a lot of potential. He could really be a bell cow guy. But this is actually a pretty good game, actually, because you look at it, it's Patriots Jets, I'm good. Rather do homework or something. But it was a fun game. I'm not even gonna lie.
A game-winning field goal, ended the game on the last drive. Flacco did botch those last 2 possessions, but
Yeah,
Flacco almost lost me my week. But luckily Harris was able to get that late 21-yard rush, and then he went down. So if he's out this week, look for Burkhead to be kind of that workhorse for them this upcoming matchup. And moving on to a Week 9 fantasy team of the week. Ooh. Starting off with Kyler Murray with 37.9 points, followed by Dalvin Cook as RB1, finishing with 39.2. And CMC in his return, 37.1. Richie James just inching out Devontae Adams by a yard, 33.4. And Devontae Adams with 33.3. Same game. Travis Kelce, as always, 25.9 this week. Tyreek Hill at our flex, 33.1. And the Saints defense with 16 points. And Greg DeLay with 15 this week for a total of 270.7 points this week. One of our more higher scoring weeks. I mean, pretty much every position player put up 30 except Kelce, who put up 26. So
graphics brought to you by Jose, yours truly.
Coming in with the fire graphics, bro. You killed this.
Thanks, bro. Well.
Yep.
And that's gonna wrap it up for this week. See you guys next week on week 10 of Coast to Coast podcast. Signing out.
Peace.